Guys, it is basic maths and it is compelling times for a first home buyer or an owner occupier. Why would you rent? We're going to go through the numbers right now with you and show you something you're going to be amazed with. Stay tuned.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes, episode 397. It's cheaper to rent than buy. The episodes are getting up there. We're going to crack the 400th on Saturday, which will be a big milestone.
44.
400. So cheaper to buy than rent. It hasn't always been the case, Mark. This is sort of really been new in the last maybe 12 months, which just makes it more compelling to buy when you're going to be paying the same in rent where you could be paying it towards a mortgage.
It's really compelling because you've always paid a premium to be an owner of property rather than a tenant. Now you are paying a premium to be a tenant of a property rather than to own that property. That's bananas.
Yeah, good point, actually. A lot of people were like, oh, I'd rather rent. It's cheaper. I can put the money somewhere else. But now a mortgage would be cheaper. So let's have a look at some of the figures. We have a great new development in DY Havana, and part of the sort of the sale pack, we got Christian Stevens, a great broker at Shore Financial, to do a chart for us on sort of rough mortgage repayments for investors, owner-occupiers, with 5% deposit, 10 or 20, just to show people a rough sort of estimate where it is. And as the agent, we know sort of where the rental figures are. And it's very compelling, very compelling. Like I'll zoom in.
It's a zoom. Just big zooms. Bigger. Yeah, that's good.
Let's start with just a simple one. Owner occupier studio, 620 grand.
Yeah.
How's that for everybody?
Yeah. No one wants a studio today.
This.
Okay, so if you've got can we do one better? It's more fun.
Yep.
Okay, so there's one betters we've got for 675, 695. We've just put 700K there as an example. Now, these are big. These are big fellas. They're excellent sizes. That's what you buy in the Northern Beaches for around that price. So when you put in a 5% deposit, you've got your payments are $2,400. Now that's principal and interest. What that means is you're paying the loan off as well as paying for the interest of the loan. When you hear interest only, that's you're only paying the interest. You're not chipping away at any mortgage. So the payments there is $2,400, which means you got 35 Gs. 35 grand, and you can buy a property for 35 grand. You can get a loan.
Well, look at this.
You can get a loan.
Your deposit, like minimum deposit, that would be 86,000 at a 5%.
No, that's for that's investor.
Yeah, for the investor, sorry. But then with the first homeowner grant, it's even less, 35,000. Like to convert that to 29,000 a year. That is.
Okay. Look at that.
And then Mark, like what a one better we typically see rent for about $550 a week. They get people like renters love new stock, especially be the first one in there. So $550 a week times 52 is $550 to sort of $580 a week.
Michael. You're
that's
being conservative on that rent. Yeah. I reckon it's more like 6, but let's put it at 550. Yeah.
Yeah, so 600 times 52 equals 31,200 a year in rent. So your principal and interest, 29,000, and your income will be 31,200.
So can you divide that by 12, please?
Yep, 2,600.
26. So it's going to cost you, if you've only got a 5% deposit to buy a property. First home buyer is a great example, and you've got only a 5% deposit. It's going to be $2,600 if you want to rent that property, as in you don't want to buy, you want to rent it, and it's going to be $2,400 in a month if you want to buy it with a 5% deposit. Now that's compelling.
And look, if you got a 20% deposit, Mark, a bit old school, 20% deposit, you'll be making $600 a month. A lot of there's still
I could never save that. I could never save that. You know what? That's when Granddad gives you the money.
Yeah. Well, there's still a lot.
I don't know how you save that. I don't know how you save that sort of deposit. I don't think you do. I don't think you actually honestly do.
Either way, 20%. Really? However, they've got it gifted. They've been gifted it. They've got it. But 20% deposit, you're actually making $600 a month on the property. Yeah. Now let's look at a 2-bedroom, brand new, around $1 million. Now 2 bedrooms have been renting phenomenally. We saw it in Meriton, DY. We've seen it in Carlisle, where you're seeing rents from $850 to $950 a week without views, like that $800 to $850 conservatively. So once again, a 5% deposit, you're at $3,500 a month. And if you're getting $850 times,
G's.
Yeah, $850.
Now bear in mind, first home buyer incentives will start clipping out at $1 million. You want to tuck it under the million.
Yeah. So $850 a week, Mark, would be $3,600 in rental income, and at a 5% deposit, you're paying $3,500. So once again,
now guys, you got to be like, this is really scary numbers for me for a first home buyer. And I would, as a first home buyer, like $700,000 for a 1-bedder is absolutely preposterous, and $950 or $1 million for a 2-bedder is blowing my mind. And I'm a first home buyer and I'm scared. What you got to remember, guys, is, and this is really good advice, what you got to remember is it's cheaper to rent. It's cheaper to buy than to rent. So we're looking at really high level numbers. But if you chunk it down to per year, if you chunk it down to per month, if you chunk it down to per week, you're better off by actually buying. You're controlling your future. It's your place. No one can kick you out. So just remember, even though it's daunting saying, oh my God, $700,000 for a 1-bedder, that is nuts. I've just got my first job and just got out of school 4 years ago. This is crazy. It's not.
Yeah, exactly right. And that doesn't take into consideration, we can talk another one on the tax depreciation advantages of buying brand new. Up to, for the 10 years, you've almost got 350 to 500,000 in benefits in the tax system. So even if you're like, oh, I'd rather, there's no other benefit, what's an extra $50 a week? Well, it's $50 extra a week, but it's also, you've got these tax benefits. Not to mention, Mark, they're talking about the market growing 10% for the next 3 years. So
yeah, that's a good one. But before we get into that, guys, and first home buyers, if you don't like this, if you don't like the property that you buy and you feel like this is holding me down because I want to go overseas, or this is holding me down because I don't want to live in DY, I want to be living in Alexandria, rent it. You don't, and that's where, and then you get those benefits you're talking about, Michael, where it's cheaper to buy than to rent, but don't feel like you're hemmed in, because after you're a first home buyer, and for example, and you've been there for 6 months, you can actually, and you've claimed all the incentives of first home buyer, you can get out of there and off you go to 6 times, whatever it is. You get out of there and go to anywhere you want in Sydney, Australia, or the world. Don't feel like you're hemmed into it.
It's a very good point, Mark. We find a lot of first home buyers, or they get very, I don't want to say bogged down, but they think it's their forever property. They feel like they've got to live there. It's got to be perfect. So try and take a step back of, like, it's hard enough to know what you're going to be doing tomorrow, let alone in 1 year, 5 years time. Just think of it compared to, especially if you're not living with your folks, you're either renting or you're buying. Like you either rent where you live or you own where you live, and it's heavily advantageous to own where you live. It'll be cheaper, not to mention the wealth creation that there's the potential down the path. So that's massive. Now, the figures that you've done just then are cash flow figures. They actually haven't considered
equity, and they haven't considered growth of the property. So it's basically money in, money out, money in, money out, money out per week, money in per week, money out per month, money. You get it, right? It's just cash
Yes.
flow. Let's talk about the big picture that you touched on.
And just on cash flow, Mark, just before, everyone basically up until the last 2 years had been buying residential property with negative cash flow and people loving it. The last 50 years has been always basically cash negative. And we all know just the sentiment around it. So it's just, imagine if it was cash flow positive 40 years ago, how many properties people would have been going for. So it's the best time ever, best environment to buy regarding cash flow ever. Then
have you got a calculator?
Sorry?
Have you got a calculator?
Yes.
Do this.
Yep.
700.
Yep.
Divided by 10.
Yep.
Divided by 12.
5,800 a month. That's what it used to be, isn't it?
No.
Your payments.
No. That is, you will, if property does what, so we've just done cash flow, right? We've just gone through cash flow, money in, money out, money in, money out. Put that aside, assume that you took a mortgage out and you're a good boy for 10 years or a good girl for 10 years. You're a good citizen for 10 years, right? Guess what you got every month after 10 years? That number on your calculator.
Yeah.
If property does what property has always done the last 50 to 100 years, the $700,000 one better you bought will be worth $1.4 million. You would have made $700,000 on top, which was that figure on Michael's calculator, $5,800 a month. So the mortgages cost you $2,600. It's cheaper for the mortgage than $2,400. It's cheaper to get a mortgage than to buy the property. But the kicker is, by $6,000 a month, your property will grow on average over a 10-year period. That is
insane.
Bananas.
And there's a lot more than people's income, the growth, plus you've got your income and your personal savings. So it's either like you buy a property, keep working and save your income, but now you can buy a property, make a little bit more income, and you're pocketing the capital growth as well with the benefits. So it's the best environment. And all the government incentives, Mark, like even first home buyers, it used to be capped at the biggest benefit, $650. Now it's $850 to buy new, and up to $1 million it scales back. So, and people always think, they will never be worth 1.4. Just to hammer this point, because people, when they hear 1.4 for a one better, you've got to keep in mind immigration, population growth, and demand. We have limited supply in Sydney, especially northern beaches. It's like you're not going to see 8,000 12,000 property density go to 30,000. So, and they're expecting what you posted the other day, Mark, a population growth of 10% a year or 26,000 extra people. There's going to be so much competition. It just creeps up. And there's still 30% growth in this decade. We're about 75%. And that's where a lot of the banks are forecasting 30% growth over the next 3 years. So even that one better is now going to be worth 9-10. So people go, well, it will never be worth 1.4. People are saying that when one better is worth $300,000. Population growth, demand, immigration. That's where we're at.
Government's forking out, helping. The government's doing so much. Guess another one, guys. You know how I just said the property value is going to double over 10 years? If you've lived in the property at one time or another over that 10-year period, 6 years and 6 years is your capital gains. No tax.
Yeah.
So your property value has gone up $700,000 and the government lets you have it all. Where do you make money in this country and not have to pay tax? Your principal place of residence, the property that you live in, you will pay no tax on. It is bananas. It's bananas. You can make 700 grand in 10 years and it's all yours. If you told that to anyone else in the world, they'd think you have rocks in your head.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that's a wrap. Thank you, Michelle. Great show. And Luke, as always. Mark, anything else you want to add on to this?
I got a story about when I was in Alaska. You heard this story?
No.
In the bus, and the lady says, they go, oh, hey, how's property do here? And the girl goes, oh, it's been great. Property's been great here. It's done really, really well. They go, wow. She said, I bought my house for $85,000 6 years ago. It's now worth $93,000.
Yeah.
The property, she bought it for 85 and now it's worth 93. And everyone in the bus went, wow. She made $8,000 in 6 years or something, and everyone was impressed by that. The capital growth that we have in this country that we've recorded over 50 to 100 years has been just incredible, and we should be really proud.
Isn't it?
Yep, for good reasons.
Yeah, perfect. All righty. Good show. Good
Sorry
story.
about my American accent.
Yeah.
See ya.
Thank you.